Back to another lesson of the Logos and Letters. My name is Liam, and in today, depends when you watch it, in this lesson anyway, we are going to go on with a complementary idea to what we've just been looking at. So we've been looking at things that are quick to come and go, affections, which can become long-lasting things, of course. And he's been going on about not forming paronyms of them, and he's been also speaking about how so much about the body and how these things are constituted in the body, and that makes sense because all colors are found in a body of some sort. Sorry, I just got distracted. I was trying to think of what that would mean for a photon, because I don't think photons have bodies, but anyway, it's pure light. But you need a body to see that light. Anyway, I'll get back to that idea in a second. So, continuing on, what do we have here, right? The soul, the spirit, the seat of rationality. Homoios de tutois kai kata tein psuken pathetike poiotetes kai pathe legatai. So, these affective qualities and affections are spoken of according to the soul, right? They're constructed, they are represented and seen as like symptomaton, right? It's like almost symptoms in the body, okay? But where do they really come from? It's our spirit, it's our feeling, it's our soul, okay? For those who do not believe in the soul, this will be an interesting lesson for you because might give you some more ground to believe so. But also there will be an entire book that we go through on the soul and its legitimacy and its role in our existence. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so Hosagarentei genesai youthus apotinon pathon duskineton gegenetai. Right? So when we consider the soul, we consider that its genesis, genesai, in its creation's generation, quickly from these particular feelings and whatnot, it can become difficult to dislodge, difficult to move. And these are qualities, okay? These are spoken of as qualities. Now, we're going to look at some examples of what he's talking about here. So just give me a moment before I expound upon them and try to make them a little bit more clear and related to everyday life. So he's speaking about these feelings, these affections and whatnot that literally affect the soul, and some of these ones can be difficult to dislodge. They're called qualities, of course. They're in the supreme genus of them, and he's going to give an example here. So, such as someone who is a manic, right? Psychotic, maniche, right? Ecstasis, right? Someone whose ecstasis can mean like in a trance, in bewilderment as well. Ecstasis can mean bewilderment. It's almost like from the standing, from a state. It can also mean what would be a modern psychological term for ecstasis. It's more like schizophrenic in a way. It can also mean, so it can mean those few things, but you're generally out of your wits. All right, a maniac can still be in their wits, all right, can still have their wits. Someone in ecstasis is not in control of their wit, okay? So kai he orgei, right? The wrathful man, the one who's suffering from that sin of wrath, okay? Kai da toyota. So these things, these examples, are ones that are difficult to dislodge and affect the soul, or find their genesis in the soul, right? And let's continue on. Poyoigar kata tautas legontai. So these are the what sortish. You can describe a man or a woman, whoever, by these things. Why? Because they're difficult to dislodge, and they're usually if not always, long-lasting, right? So a person can be in a sort of like catatonic state, or a sort of mute state, or a state of severe shock and PTSD, or develop some form of condition more closely related to something like schizophrenia, and that's long lasting, correct? Like, it can be fixed, it's not forever, it's not permanent. It's sometimes fixed on its own, sometimes fixed with help, or a combination of both. But he's saying these are set of his qualities, but they qualify the person only because they're long lasting, and you can name them, you can form a paronym by that, okay? Chapter 1, sentence 3, I believe. Poyoigar katatautas legontai orkiloi, right? So the wrathful. What's another way of describing that? The irascible and the manic, right? The psychotic. Homoios, lunatic as well, would be a good translation for that if we were translating into Latin. Homoios de kai hosai ecstasis me fusikai, right? So these things are not like, all these things such as like ecstasis, all these conditions that we're speaking of is not like a physical bodily thing. It's all to do with the psyche, the seat of rationality, the soul. But we'll get into the finer details of that in later studies. But that's what he's doing. He's sort of separating the two there. Ala apothinon alon symptomaton gegenetai. But literally, from these certain circumstances or circumstantial things, gegenetai tusapalaktoi. This is a word that's related to diskenetoi, but it means like not so much hard to remove, but hard to get away from, right? These things are hard to get away from. They have become hard to get away from. Or on a whole, impossible to move. So yes, sometimes these conditions can become impossible to cure, to fix, not because they're incurable in themselves, but people lack the skill and know-how to cure them, whatever the case may be. Poyotetes kaita toyota poyoi, right? I should actually pause there as a comma. So these things are qualities, insofar as what we're speaking about. They are still qualities, even though they are such like psychological matters. They are qualities, just to clarify that. And continue on. Boyoi, what sortish? Gar kata dautas legontai, right? And we can speak of individuals of who suffer these sorts of states, whether for a short time or a long time, by the paronyms formed from them, or the names that we give them for those states. Why? Because they're very difficult to get away from. And on a whole, sometimes you can't get away from them. You can't dislodge them or move them, right? Hoseda apotaku apokatistamenon ginetai. And so he's introducing a new idea here. Pathe legatai. See? So these things, affections, are spoken of, those things that are quickly like remedied. We get back to the state in which it was before. It becomes the state it was before. These things are called affections. I think we've covered that in 2 lessons now, that affections are those sorts of things. So let's continue. Hoioni lupomenos dis orkilo teros estin. Right, this is a good one. I'm going to go to an artwork here for this one. Love that word as well. I'll come back to it in a sec. Let me see. What would be a good example for this one? I need someone who is grieving. I've got this one. Let me use this one. All right, let's say he's grieving for the loss of a best friend. Okay, one of the hardest things to deal with, up there with family, right? Best friends often become something like family, right? He's grieving, okay? And Aristotle, the philosopher here, very humanly addresses this point. He says, the one who's grieving, someone who is grieving, can be more disposed to anger, orgiloteros, more wrathful in that moment. Udegar legetai orgilos, hoentoi, toiutoi pathai, orgiloteros on, right? But we do not speak of them as being wrathful. The one in that state of suffering the more wrathfulness, right? Of being more wrathful. We don't call them an angry man just because this person in their grief lashed out. It's perfectly natural, right? And there is lots of science to explain why this is the case these days. And we have lots of personal anecdotes, okay? And that's actually related to a word that we looked at before, a different word. It's related to hypolepsis. Aleiphthe. It's up here somewhere, but here, aleiphthe. Aleiphthe. It's when you assume, you take up a principle or a thing that's usually just by human consensus, general experience, right? It's an assumption. You can take up a premise and consider it to be true just because so many people experience it. And that's the same for when someone is grieving, lupomenos, that they become angrier, and that we do not call them an angry person because of this state or their being on, right? For the biblical scholars, those reading the Old Testament in Greek, you will recognize this word, on, this dative word here, as what God describes himself as, egoimion, right? But anyway, that's another thing. Alamalon pepontenaiti, right? We just call those people who are grieving as suffering something, right? That person is just suffering something, pepontenaiti, or someone who is suffering, okay? We do not call them the angry person. We forgive them and we look past whatever negative emotions might come about. Do I not have another grieving sort of artwork? I really don't. I should probably, next time I grab some more artwork, I will look for those more emotional artworks. Right? So even Jesus of Nazareth, when he's in the garden, he sort of shows impatience when he is praying so hard that he bleeds blood, sweats blood, bleeds blood, of course he does, sweats blood. He shows impatience, a bit of discontent, and that's normal. We don't call Jesus of Nazareth a discontent man because he was discontent once or impatient once, and we don't call him an angry man because he was wrathful at when he was in the temple in his father's house. Okay, so we can see how that works. All right, but he shows incredible patience throughout his life, so we can call him a patient man. Okay, is there one of psychosis? I don't know. That's a... Oh, you know what? Narcissus. Narcissus, where are you? Narcissus. Which one? Narcissus, I think, is closer to the Greek. So he's always vain, right? We can call him a vain man. He's not just vain now and then. Actually, you know what? In the story, he's only vain for a little bit before he drowns himself. But anyone with narcissism is called a narcissist because they are quite in love with themselves for a long time, not just a short time, and so on and so forth. And so yeah, if someone displays a sort of behavior or an attitude just once or infrequently, you cannot call them, address them, prosaguro, according to that state. It has to be a habit for the logic to be on your side. Okay, you might call them that just to make them angry and to stir them up. You know, they'll work. But really, we can only address them if it's long-lasting and persistent. Okay. hoste pathemen legatai ta toyao ta poyo te dau. Right? So we're going to call these by their proper name, right? Hostepathe, like affections, okay? The anger that someone shows in their grief, that's just pathe, right? And we're not going to call them just qualities. See how this is a similar lesson that was shown right up here. Somewhere up here, this was shown, and this idea of calling it by its correct name, not just something more general. Okay, we want to call them like affections and whatnot. Why? Because it's more accurate. It's like when you call a human being an animal. True, they are an animal. They have an anima, a spirit. And they fit the bill and the criteria of what an animal is. But that takes away from what a human being truly is. Okay, you take away so much of what's important. A human being is the most noble of creatures, even if people hate humans. We truly are, and for all our faults, and for all our faults, we definitely outweigh them. So to call a human being an animal is to do them a disservice, an injustice, because a human being is so much more than an animal, so much more differentia, and accidents come with the appellation of human. So it's the same thing here. We need to call them we need to try our best to speak of them, speak of things in their most accurate form, and not just too generally, okay, because that can cause problems. Miscommunication, of course, is one such problem. But yeah, we'll leave it there. I think that's a really thorough covering of like colors and states of being and mind. These 3 lessons that I filmed this morning have almost feel like a fever dream compared to the slow and steady and predictable state of the others. This feels so alive and vivid. So if you're getting that same impression, I'm in the same boat as you. But yeah, we're going to move on to a fourth genus of this supreme genus. Okay, so yeah, I'll leave it there. My name is Liam, and as always, thank you so much for listening. Si semper fortis in opere tuo, and I'll see you next time.